Hello friends and welcome to this special series on language and speech. Speech is something which makes human being distinct from the rest of the animals on this planet, as we are able to communicate meaningfully with fellow human beings, but as also have scripts in which it can be processed and communicated via multimedia. Now, linguistics is the formal study of language, and in it we study various subparts like syntax, which is studying the structure of sentence, semantics, which is the study of the meaning of language, pragmatics, which is the study of use of language, morphology, which is the study of rules for forming admissible words, phonology, which is the study of sound system of a given language, and the analysis and classification of its phonemes. We will be also studying phonetics, which is a branch of acoustic concerned with speech processes, including its production, perception and acoustic analysis. Today we are talking about speech. Now, speech sounds are produced by the movement of air out of our lungs into the vocal tract. And to explain this, let us first understand the mechanism of breathing. First of all, universally, speech is formed when air from the lungs moves out, and this type of outward flow of air is called pulmonic, because the movement of air is coming out of the lungs, and it is also termed as aggressive. It is so because as the movement of air is towards outside, and all type of languages are pulmonic and aggressive. Now, let us talk a bit about the lungs and the vocal tract. Our lungs are large bags which continuously expand and contract to inhale or exhale air, which is required for our sustenance. They are connected to the outside world via a pipe which is called trachea. We also call it the windpipe. The lungs are surrounded by a lot of muscles which helps it to contract and expand. Like horizontally, the lungs are surrounded by rib cage muscles, and at the bottom of the lungs there is a special muscle called the diaphragm. In order to understand the mechanism of speech, you have to understand the whole biological process of how the air is manipulated inside our body, particularly in the vocal tract. When we breathe in, the diaphragm expands the lower portion of our lungs by pulling it down, and the rib cage muscles move horizontally to create a bigger volume, which results in a low pressure area inside the lungs. This results in the inflow of air through our nostrils into the lungs. It is like sucking in air, and this is how inhalation comes naturally to us. This is basically an autonomous process. That means it is controlled by the autonomous nervous system in our body, and we don't have to think consciously about breathing in and out even when we are deep asleep. The body takes care that we are properly breathing in sufficient amount of air. If we are doing a strenuous job or doing some exercise or running, the breathing automatically becomes fast in order to provide more oxygen to the body. So, everything in breathing is highly automated. So, it is now clear that diaphragm and rib muscles play a crucial part in expanding the thoracic cavity, so that the life giving oxygen comes inside the lungs, and when the oxygen in the blood has been used and been metabolized into carbon dioxide, it is expelled from the lungs by contracting and reducing the size of lungs, very much in the same manner as the air escapes from a balloon, albeit not that fast. Now, while the process of expulsion of air from the lungs, the process of speech happens, that is, the egression happens. Now, let us try to understand the construction of vocal cords or the vocal box. We have talked about larynx, which is actually a kind of valve which stops everything except air to go down in the lungs. It plays a crucial part in the process of speech as it houses the vocal cords or the vocal folds. During the process of inhalation, it allows air to go inside the lungs, but as it comes out, the larynx accomplishes an orchestration of muscles of vocal cords or vocal folds and actually make them vibrate. Now, this vibration is what we term as speech. Now, it is important to understand that speech originates from the vocal cords, but it assumes the full form of speech only with the help of other components like mouth part and of course, resonance generated from the thoracic cage, the neck and the nasal cavity. Now, air can flow in or out of mouth through oral and nasal cavity and is controlled by an organ named velum. The velum is a kind of valve which controls the passage of air through windpipe. So, if the velum is raised, it obstructs the airflow into the nasal cavity and the air must exit through the oral passage. If the velum is lowered, the air is able to pass through the nasal cavity. So, there are sounds which are formed by passage of air through the oral cavity, and there are some types of sounds which are formed if air flows through nasal cavity. Our normal speech is a combination of oral and nasal sound. Now, this is important to understand that the air flows out of lungs into the windpipe and passes through the vocal box where vocal folds vibrate, and that vibrating air passes through the oral or nasal tract or both depending on the sound. There is also an angle to the approach of nasal sounds. We all have different nasal cavity construction and it plays a crucial part in how good the final speech is going out to be. If you talk about me, then I am having a small deformity in my nose which obstructs the normal passage of air, and due to this I am prone to allergies which leads to nasal inflammation and its blocking. So, my sound will sometimes when I am having a flu or cold, my sound will be, it will sound a bit funny when it is blocked. For example, I will make a demonstration that if I speak the same sentence by making sure that my nostrils are blocked, it will be very funny. So, my sound will sound a bit funny when it is blocked. So, in order to speak, the air has to pass through the nostrils. Now, in a lighter vein, I will talk about a prominent music composer, director and singer in our film industry by the name of Himesh Reshammiya. Now, Himesh has got a nasal quality to his voice and people generally tag him as ye to naak se gata hai. This peculiar accusation got him pretty infuriated and he had public spats with the member of press. But of late, I guess he has thrown up his hands and reconciled and admitted to have a nasal tone. And he and Akshay Kumar even did a spoof in the latest film Khiladi 786 or 786 by putting. I will give you another example of differentiating between nasal and oral sounds. If you close your nose with your hands and try to say A or B, you will find that it is not difficult for you because the sound is primarily oral and the airflow passes through the mouth while saying the word. I will give you a demonstration. I will close my nostrils and say A, B. So, the sound is coming out of my oral cavity, but when I try to say words like N, we will find it difficult to sound properly, because in our natural way of speaking, most of the air while saying this word comes through nose. So, I will give you a demo, like I will try to say N with my nose closed, N, N. So, you see N. So, it is important that the air comes out of the nose while saying this word, and if we try to say M, then we will find that we will not be able to do it, as our lips will be closed, making the air flow from the mouth not possible, while our nose is kept closed by our fingers. So, now it must be evidently clear to you that while speaking, if it is an oral sound, then the velum is raised and it blocks off air, so that it is routed through our mouth, and when a nasal sound is produced, the velum is lowered and air is allowed to pass through the nose. So, it is not that only the mouth is the only organ for producing speech. The nasal cavity plays an important role in letting out a perfect speech. Now, let us talk about articulation. Now, vocal tract has some organs which are used primarily in production of consonants. So, in describing the place of articulation, we are describing where in the vocal tract the sound is made. So, articulators are a part of vocal tract and are essential in speech production. Now, there are two types of articulators, active and passive. Now, active articulators are the one that make movements during the production of speech, while passive articulators do not make a movement. They are complementary to the active articulators in the sense that they are the instruments on which the active articulators work on. So, the active articulator is like the tip of the tongue, which moves a lot, which is also visible prominently. It moves and slashes a lot during the production of speech. The tip of the tongue provides a lot of sound in English language like C, D, H, and the passive articulator like the alveolar ridge, which is a bony formation behind the upper teeth, provides this active articulator a complementary structure through which the speech can be formed. Now, let us talk about some more organs of speech. Bilabial. Now, bi means two and labial means lips. In English language, there is a lot of usage of bilabial sounds, that is when we are using our lips. Interestingly, if we say Abba, Amma, Appa, and if we show a video recording to somebody else without audio, they will not be able to distinguish between the three different words. I am again trying to give you a demonstration. I will say these words again with the audio muted, and you would not be able to distinguish which word I am saying. Again I will say these words. Now, I guess you were not able to tell which word I was speaking, because the lips movement is same. Next is labiodental sound, that is speech which is produced with combination of lips and dentures. Our teeth and surrounding dentures are very essential in process of reproduction of speech. Labiodental sounds are quite frequent in English language. Most of the time it involves the combination of upper teeth and lower lip. Speech sounds can also be exclusively dental in words like thin, din, think. These words involve combination of lips tongue with the final sound coming from the upper portion of the lips. Next category is alveolar sounds, which is made by the hard bony surface just behind the upper teeth. Alveolar sounds are very prominent when we use words like tent. Sounds with alveolar sounds in English are words like D, L, N, R, T, S, Z. In all these sounds, we are trying to make use of the hard portion of the upper palate of the mouth, which is somewhere over here. Then there are post alveolar sounds that are made with the portion of upper region of mouth just behind the hard palate or the alveolar region. Examples of these words are shilling, channel, ship, adjunct. So, you notice in all these sounds we are trying to move our tongue against the upper portion of the mouth, but of course, it is a bit inferior to the hard palate. Now, there are a special category which is based on which part of mouth they are originating from. In this context, coronal is a category which comprises dental, alveolar, post alveolar and retroflex. Since they are all made with the first part of tongue, and these sounds may be made with either the tip of the tongue or the blade, which is the portion of tongue just behind the tip. Palatal sounds are made with the middle part of tongue in conjunction with the hard palate. For example, the sound ye, which is spoken as yes, watch, or in the word like usual or computation. So, you will notice the movement of the tongue with the upper portion of the hard palate. Now, in articulation, plosive is a stop, an articulator in which by the use of tongue or lips a complete blockage of oral tract is done, in which all the airflow ceases. The words T, D involves the tip of the tongue, it ceases the airflow, it stops the airflow. K, G involves the blade of the tongue. You try to speak these words yourself and you will actually come to know that what organs of speech are involved. And the words where lips are used, they are in the words like P and B. So, you will notice in the previous words I was using my tongue to stop or seize the airflow, but now in the words P and B I am using my lips to seize the airflow. So, we have discussed a lot about different types of speech organs, and then we have talked about different categories of sound and how they are produced by the different parts of the mouth. Now, the construction of mouth organs you all have understood, but now also in this episode we have also demonstrated how tongue or the upper part of the mouth, they all work together so that different types of sounds are produced or made. I hope this interaction was of some use to all of you. Thank you so much for listening.